Consider, for a moment, an existence severed from the night, a life that has biologically rejected the planetary mandate of darkness. On our tilted, spinning world, the sun is a transient visitor, a fleeting gift that inevitably surrenders to the void. But there is one organism that refuses to accept this rhythmic death of the light. One creature that has observed the celestial mechanics and decided to cheat the system. It is a paradox, wrapped in white plumage. To the uninitiated, it masquerades as fragility, a delicate, angular silhouette slicing through the gale, weighing no more than a hollowed-out apple. Its skeleton is a lattice of air-filled shards. Its heart, a frantic engine the size of a thumbnail. By every canon of physics and caloric conservation, this creature should never leave the safety of the shoreline. It should be content to drift in the calm shallows. Yet, this unassuming aviatrix, the Arctic Tern, is the protagonist of the single greatest odyssey in the history of life. It is not merely a bird. It is a celestial wanderer, a creature that views the curvature of the Earth not as a world, but as a commute, grasped the terrifying scale of its ambition. While other species retreat into hibernation or settle for a modest hop to the tropics, the tern commits to a trajectory of 90,000 kilometers. Annually, it traces a line of infinite summer from the crown of the world to its frozen soul. Over a lifespan that can stretch 3 decades, this brittle animal will traverse the equivalent of 3 round trips to the moon. What madness drives a being of such slight build to pit itself against the wrath of the Atlantic and the vacuum of the Pacific? The answer is a photophilic addiction. By chasing the solstice across hemispheres, the Arctic tern witnesses more daylight than any other creature since the dawn of time. It is the only animal on Earth living in a state of near-perpetual illumination. But as we are about to witness, the price of living in the light is a journey through the absolute extremes of darkness. To comprehend the magnitude of this crusade, we must transport ourselves to the starting line, a place where planetary geometry conspires to break the spirit. We descend into the high Arctic, Svalbard, Greenland, the shattered archipelagos of the Canadian North. Here, landscape is an insufficient term. This is a theaterscape of geological violence, a world composed entirely of jagged edges and blinding albedo, where the ocean does not merely freeze, it calcifies into drifting continents of white armor. The air here tastes of ancient ice and ozone, thin, sharp, carrying a biting clarity that sears the lungs. Stand here, and you feel the crushing indifference of the elements. The wind is not a breeze, it is a physical entity, a howling invisible giant, stripping heat from flesh in seconds. The silence, when the gale pauses, is heavy, ruptured only by the gunshot cracks of carving glaciers, the sound of the earth reshaping itself in slow motion. This environment was not built for comfort. It was engineered to cull the weak. Beneath the tern's wings lies the Arctic Ocean, a brooding obsidian mirror reflecting the endless grey sky. The water is a liquid paradox, teeming with nutrient-rich lipids, yet cold enough to arrest a human heart in minutes. It is a black abyss, concealed under a deceptive skin of slush. For any creature here, the margin for error is 0. A wet feather, a missed strike, a momentary lapse in vigilance against the marauding skuas, or the silent, stalking fox, and the narrative ends. Yet, in this amphitheater of hostility, the Arctic tern chooses to breed. They descend from the grey heavens not with trepidation, but with a raucous, piercing cry, kick, 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 that shears through the roar of the surf. They do not hide from the wasteland, they colonize it. They transform bleak shingle beaches into bustling nurseries, defying the frost with the furnace of their own metabolism. But as the brief Arctic summer wanes, as the sun dips lower, threatening to vanish, a biological alarm rings within their hollow bones. The environment is turning, and so they must turn their backs on the only home they know, to face the open void. The descent into the Arctic was merely the prologue, the true trial, the descent into the blue wilderness begins now. Out of the freezing mists, the architect of this impossible journey reveals its form. To scrutinize an Arctic tern is to witness a masterpiece of biological minimalism. Evolution has ruthlessly stripped away every gram of excess, leaving a creature that is less animal and more feathered projectile. Weighing barely 100 grams, the heft of a smartphone, this fragile envelope is powered by a metabolic fire that burns with terrifying intensity. Its body is a study in aerodynamics. Wings long, slender, and swept back like scythes, evolved not for flapping, but for slicing. This is organic engineering, at its most efficient. A machine built to transmute atmospheric chaos into a highway. The science of their survival is a lesson in planetary energy management. If the tern were to fight the wind, to brute force its way across the globe, it would burn out and plummet into the waves within days. Instead, it plays a high-stakes game of aerial chess. It possesses an innate, almost supernatural sensitivity to the Earth's invisible currents. It rejects the straight-line geometry for the land-bound, and instead follows the great spiraling gyres, curving in massive S-shapes across the Atlantic. It rides the invisible rivers of air, surrendering to the gale to steal its momentum. This is their superpower, reading the sky as a map, weaponizing the very forces that seek to destroy them. But the journey is no passive drift. It is a gauntlet of shifting terrors. Crossing the equator, the biting cold is replaced by the suffocating hammer of tropical heat. The air grows viscous. Beneath them, the ocean transforms into a deep, cobalt desert, vast stretches where food is scarce, and the surface acts as a magnifying glass for the punishing sun. Here, the tern becomes a hunter of surgical precision. Hovering mid-air, a momentary suspension of gravity, its obsidian eyes lock onto a glimmer of silver. Then, the fold, the dive. It strikes the water not with a splash, but with a sharp, ballistic entry. It is a snatch and grab existence. They cannot rest on the water, for their plumage is not fully waterproof. To become waterlogged is to drown. They are creatures of the ether, condemned to fly or die. And then, the world shifts again. They reach the bottom of the globe, the gateway to the Antarctic, entering the realm of the roaring 40s and the furious 50s. Here, the ocean stops behaving like water and begins to act like geology. The waves are moving mountain ranges, grey and white-capped, towering 30 meters above. The wind screams with a voice that can strip paint from steel. Picture the tableau. A single 4-ounce bird, a speck of white dust, pitched against a storm spanning 1,000 miles. The sky is a bruising purple. The sea a churning cauldron of hydraulic force. The tern is tossed upward, a leaf in a hurricane, silhouetted against a wall of water threatening to swallow the horizon. Yet, it does not panic. It adjusts. A micro-tilt of a wingtip, dancing in the violence. It skims the troughs between the hydraulic behemoths, finding pockets of calm in the valley of the swell. It is a terrifying intimacy with destruction. This is not merely flight. It is a defiance of the chaotic nature of the universe. To witness the Arctic tern in motion is to confront a fundamental shattering of our understanding of home. We, as humans, are defined by roots, by static patches of earth we claim as territory. We build walls to exclude the elements. We draw borders to define belonging. The tern mocks this terrestrial bias. It belongs nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. It has decoupled existence from the land, becoming a citizen of the wind, a creature whose true habitat is not a location, but a trajectory. This biological anomaly forces us to reconsider the limits of endurance. We view life as fragile, something to be sheltered from cosmic harshness. Yet here is an organism weighing less than a cup of sugar, voluntarily throwing itself into the teeth of the planet's most violent weather systems, decade after decade. It suggests that on this blue marble, safety is an illusion. And movement is the only true security. Stagnation is death. Only in the perpetual fall forward, in the relentless pursuit of the light, is survival guaranteed. In its lifetime, a single Tern will traverse the void of space in terms of sheer mileage. They are not merely birds. They are cosmic travelers bound by gravity, stitching the two frozen ends of our world together with an invisible thread of flight. They prove that with enough desperation and evolutionary genius, the physical limitations of flesh and bone can be suspended. The planet is not vast, it is conquerable, provided one never stops moving. And so, under the eerie, insomniac sun of the Antarctic, the journey pauses, but only for a heartbeat. They have reached the bottom of the world, a place of crystalline silence, where the sun circles the horizon like a watching eye that refuses to blink. Here, they molt. They rebuild their flight feathers, replacing the worn tools of their odyssey, preparing for the inevitable return. For the summer here is fleeting, just as it was in the north. The shadows will lengthen, the ice will advance, the command to leave will rise again in their blood. It is a cycle without beginning or end, a perpetual loop of feathers and light. When we look up, seeing only a flash of white against the grey sky, we see a bird. But if we could see with the eyes of history, we would see a ghost, a survivor of a million storms, a tiny, defiant spark drifting through the great, indifferent emptiness. They are the only creatures on Earth to live in a forever day, fleeing the darkness as if it were a physical predator. In their wake, they leave us with a humbling realization. Perhaps we are the ones in the dark, stationary and small, while they, the masters of the endless horizon, are the only ones who truly see the world in all its terrifying, illuminated glory. The wind picks up, the wings unfold, the Arctic awaits. The chase begins again.